The Joe Rogan Experience.
In the film, I think when you said, and I've seen you say this on interviews, we have 22 years of research showing that a single high-fat meal impairs endothelial function. That study was it was from 1997. So that's
multiple studies, and I can put them up if you want.
So that's 22 years.
But you cited a study from
effect of a single high-fat meal on endothelial function in healthy subjects. So this compared a 900-calorie diet. Both were on 900 calories. One group was eating 50 grams of fat, and one group was 0 grams of fat. The high-fat meal was an Egg McMuffin, a Sausage McMuffin.
I'm not talking about those.
2 hash browns, and a non-caffeinated drink, all from McDonald's.
Yeah, I'm not talking about those.
Okay, but that's
one.
Study.
You just picked one.
Well, which one are you talking about?
Well, I got a bunch.
Okay.
Well, I got a bunch that actually contradict that. So the same study, the same researcher that did that study found that taking vitamin C and E after the high-fat meal completely eliminated the effect that it had on endothelial function, which suggests that a healthy omnivorous diet with plants wouldn't have the same impact. There was a 2019 review, and this will be at kresser.co/gamechangers, adding nuts, avocados, olives, berries, spice blends, orange juice, red wine, and protein, including milk protein, to a high-fat meal prevents endothelial dysfunction and oxidative stress. We've got several studies that suggest that dairy and egg proteins improve endothelial function. 2015 controlled trial with 52 subjects. Dietary proteins, including milk and egg, improved endothelial function. 2006 study adding dietary protein to a high-fat meal prevented postprandial endothelial dysfunction. We have 2009 study followed subjects for 12 weeks. A low-carb diet improved endothelial function, whereas a low-fat diet decreased it. 2007 study with followed subjects. I can go on and on and on.
Okay, he just is rattling on.
All of these studies show that animal proteins don't increase and decrease endothelial function.
So you have to know more about nutrition.
And it's really frustrating.
Please respond to it.
Okay.
James.
So first of all, you compared low carb and high carb. I'm not for health. I'm not promoting high carb or low carb.
That wasn't the point. The point is that low carb diets that contain animal products and that milk and egg protein have been shown to improve endothelial function, not worsen it.
Right. So
the claim in the film was that animal protein worsens endothelial function.
Right, because that is the scientific consensus, and we keep going back to this.
Well, tell us why. Tell us why that is.
I mean,
these other seafood consumption protects against endothelial damage. Seafood is an animal protein. Mediterranean diet, which includes animal products, improves pulse wave velocity, blood flow, markers of atherosclerosis. These are studies in the peer-reviewed literature.
Yeah, but
lots of them.
So what's wrong with this?
So the industry funding studies, what you do if you want...
Wait, who said anything about these being industry funded?
No, but what you do, is compare, everything is healthy compared to what? Healthy or unhealthy compared to what? So if you have a low carb diet and you replace the bunch of white sugar and flour, you might not see... the outcome is going to be a decrease.
But the claim that was made in the film is that animal proteins worsen endothelial function. Okay. I just listed a whole bunch of studies, especially those suggesting, here's one that says, influence of food patterns on endothelial biomarkers, a systematic review. The conclusion was that healthy food patterns, abundant in fruits and vegetables, had a beneficial impact on endothelial function. Westernized patterns, higher intakes of processed meats, sweets, fried foods, refined grains were positively associated to inflammation.
Which makes my point.
And then it makes my point, which is quality matters.
Yeah,
so
quality matters.
So if you give someone Sausage McMuffin and Egg McMuffins and you show that...
I'm not showing that. My studies are not showing those.
Okay, but let's let him explain his studies. James.
Okay, so for example, slide 71, I purposely didn't include those studies because I don't think that they're a good thing to compare to. So slide 71... Okay, this is nice because there's a graph, right? So you can see, everyone's saying like that fat in the blood, that's normal. Well, what do you mean by normal? Yeah, lots of people do that. That's normal. That doesn't mean it's optimal when you see the fat in the blood like that. And by the way, it was a film. We couldn't throw everything in. So when you see fat, that's called postprandial lipemia. That means after a meal, fat in the blood, right? That is associated with up to a 50% decreased endothelial function, which means less nitric oxide is produced, which means that the arteries can't open up as much, less oxygen, less nutrients to the muscles, okay? So that is associated. As you can see in this graph, I don't know, so the solid line is the the solid line is how much your arteries are dilating, flow-mediated vasodilation, right? So as the triglycerides, this is after the meal, okay, which was, by the way, a shake of whipping cream and liquid chocolate and non-fat dry milk, okay? As you eat the meal, you can see that the triglycerides go up. That's the fat in your blood. See, between 2 and 4 hours, it kind of peaks. We measured those athletes at 2 hours. And again, this is not just a film. It's been done for over 20 years in the scientific literature. So as you can see in the graph, right, Joe? Yeah. As the dotted line goes up, that's the appearance of more fat in the blood, right? You get that lactescence, the milkiness of the blood. You can see that very clearly that the flow-mediated dilation drops. So it drops by 11%, okay? If you look, for example, does that make sense? So that when you have those fat in the blood, your ability to your arteries to expand goes down. And there's no, that's not an Egg McMuffin. That is milk and whipping cream, and that's it. So now if you go to slide 73, now I agree this had some, so they compare, now they're here, yeah, we can skip to the next one. That was 11%. Okay, so here what I've done is, the only thing I changed about this graph is I put the green dots for the plant-based meal and the red dots for the animal-based meal. So they were eating Korean barbecue, egg, milk, oil, mayonnaise, rice, and vegetables. And on the other hand, they were having a vegan meal of soup, kimchi, vegetables, orange juice, apple. So it was matched for calories at 800 calories. The green is in red, and the green is plants, and the red is animal-based. So I don't know if you want to go into, but basically, I mean, you have slide 74.
But again, please try to remember a lot of people listening.
Oh, sorry. Do you want to read the
No,
two?
you mean you can if you want. But here, changes of serum triglycerides were negatively correlated with changes of FMD.
That's flow-mediated dilation.
No doubt. Well, low-carb diets often will lower serum triglycerides, and they contain
not postprandially.
Not
Not postprandially. Not after the meal, which is important to test, because that lasts for 6 to 8 hours. And what do you do again? You eat another animal-based meal. So the next part, Joe?
Go ahead.
Then how is it that triglycerides go down over time if
because your body adapts to it? So Joe, can you read the second part?
The study suggests that acute HTG...
That's hypertriglyceridemia. That's the fat in the blood, basically.
...causes endothelial dysfunction via enhanced oxidant stress, and this may pave the way for the development of atherosclerosis.
It's a mouthful.
Atherosclerosis.
Under chronic conditions. So what that's saying, like in the short, acute means short term, and chronic's like long term, basically. Under acute thing, it affects your endothelial function, your ability to exercise and perform, and in the long term, affects chronic conditions like heart disease. And if you go to slide 75, remember that chart that we looked at with the green dots and the red dots?
8.2% decrease in FMD 2 hours following the animal-based meal, 2.7% increase in FMD 2 hours following the plant-based meal.
Okay, so you got less blood flow. So Chris makes out there's no science, no evidence. It was just this crazy thing that they made up. It was the co-chair of the cardiovascular committee for the NFL that has been researching this for years.
I didn't say that, James. I said there was a lot of other evidence contradicting it. So
right, but
again, if we want to bring up study, you can effects of dietary carbohydrate restriction versus low-fat diet on flow-mediated dilation. This is what you've been talking about.
No, because you're not comparing it to the diet that I'm suggesting.
Weeks, peak flow-mediated dilation at 3 hours increased from 5.1% to 6.5% in the carbohydrate-restricted group, and decreased from 7.9% to 5.2% in the low-fat diet group.
Right.
12-week low-carbohydrate diet improves postprandial vascular function more than a low-fat diet.
Right, because the low-fat diet has a bunch of like white flour and stuff in it. That's the thing.
But
that's
so
what
does often the low-carb diets do too that
but
are being compared, or the diets with animal. If we're talking about protein, the claim in the film was that animal protein causes endothelial dysfunction. Somehow we've gotten off talking about fat. And I've just mentioned many studies that show that dietary proteins, including milk and egg, improve endothelial function.
No, they don't.
Fish. Okay,
they don't. Based
study
on
right here.
No, but Joe.
So what are these studies?
You can't just say a study, right? Because Chris can bring up studies that I can't.
Dietary proteins improve endothelial function under fasting conditions, but not in the postprandial state. with no effects on markers of low-grade inflammation.
But when
This
you
is
say
in the British
dietary
Journal of
proteins-
Nutrition, 2015 study.
Okay, but dietary proteins doesn't even necessarily mean animal-based proteins, right?
No, it says
Di-
including milk and egg.
including.
Yeah.
Joe,
I'm not
the
disputing.
bottom line is that he can present any study. I'd have to dig into it, see the funding, because it's always what it's compared to. So you can show a huge benefit for eggs if you compare it to lard, right? You can. There's all
This
sorts of
was
things.
not, these were proteins that included soy, milk, and egg, and they all improved endothelial function.
Yeah,
and then another
if you take
study
soy or you
showing,
take egg instead of
showing
white sugar.
adding dietary protein, milk or soy, to a high-fat meal prevented postprandial endothelial dysfunction. And then there are the 2 low-carb studies that I mentioned. There's a controlled trial that found that a low-carb, high-fat diet improved pulse wave velocity, which is another marker of endothelial function. There are studies of the Mediterranean diet, which is a healthy diet pattern that includes some animal products, improved pulse wave velocity. Seafood consumption protects against endothelial damage.
Yes, compared to beef, it does.
Reviews,
And can I just say, like, for example, you said you were trying to refute the study about the increased risk of cancer, colon cancer, between vegetarians and non-vegetarians, right? The 3 times increased risk with those who had white meat, like fish or chicken, once or twice a week. And then you go to a meta-analysis, which is not comparing, you're comparing fish to bacon or beef, of course, compared
these
to
aren't
that.
comparing any. These are controlled trials that look at dietary proteins, milk,
Right, again,
soy,
but Chris,
and egg.
But Chris, first of all, you have admitted that you don't even know how to read the science. Is that fair? Do you honestly
No.
feel qualified to read even a single paper?
Yes.
But you don't know how to read a forest
I've
plot?
taken research. I took a master's level research methodology class.
So, but
And
you don't
these
know,
are
but you
these
don't,
are. I'm referring to studies that are in
it's
the
honestly-
peer-reviewed literature,
honestly,
James.
it's like- it's
and you
re-
haven't answered the question. Like, how, if protein impairs endothelial function, why are studies showing that milk and egg don't do that?
Jo-